Hey, beautiful soul. Welcome to today's soul chat. So, I have been doing these soul chats from the car because I do them on Mondays when my son is home, and I generally do them when he's taking a nap. And this is the first one I'm doing inside the home when he is at daycare. So, just a side note, if you're noticing the background is different and the lighting is better, it's because I am home doing the soul chat. So today we are talking about and continuing the conversation from last week's soul chat about attachments. So last week we talked about detachment, we talked about toxic attachments, how to overcome them, and this week I want you to understand kind of the basics of attachment and how they are grown from our ego. And so what we need to do in order to understand attachments from the ego is understand the ego first. So the ego is just an aspect of us. There's just different aspects of us within our being, within our energetic being, and the ego is one. The ego is the one that identifies. So it identifies with I, with me, with I. It is your identity center, pretty much. And so what you believe in, what your beliefs are, who you think you are, in terms of the way you look, even coming down to what country you're from, where you're born, what state you're from, what language you speak, all of these things, your occupation, your career, your identity as roles in life and family, right? These are all attached to your ego. These are all coming from your ego, and then your ego plants a seed of attachment to these things. And this is how attachments grow. And so what we need to understand is attachments and the ego are not bad. Attachments and the ego are needed in order for us to live this human experience. If we didn't have these attachments and we didn't have the ego to tell us what our identity is, we would just be pretty much, these beings just floating around and not really getting much done materialistically in this life, right? Like all of the productivity that we do and the creativity that we have is attached to our ego. And so the very first thing to do, if you're listening to this, is to take away the bias of the ego, to take away the bias that you may have, especially if you're starting your spiritual journey, because I know that there's so much negativity around the ego. Like the ego is bad. We need to get rid of the ego. You need to blah, blah. But it's like you need the ego. It's about the balance of the ego and the soul. It's about the balance of all of the aspects of us. It's about the balance of all the different parts of us, our higher self, our ego, our inner child, and our soul. And when we can come into that balance within this human experience, that is when you experience what we call spiritual ascension. That is when you can rise into the greatest levels of consciousness and the greatest levels of consciousness, because you're in balance of all of these things. When you are too much in any of them, you're not experiencing any sort of balance. You're not even experiencing any sort of consciousness. When you're too much, I'm going on a tangent, but I'm just going to give you an example. When you're too much in your soul or in your higher self, you're not grounded in this earth. You're not part of this earth. You're not part of this human experience. And that can also be equally as challenging as if you were just in your ego and not with your soul and with your higher self and with your inner child. So, now that we understand what the ego is and where attachments come from and why the ego is important, let's now talk about the attachments. So we're going to take an example of one attachment. And the one attachment that I'm going to talk about is being a parent, being a mother, okay? So when your child is born, or even before your child is born, when you are pregnant, right? There's an attachment that starts to grow within you between you and this child, you and this being. But moreover, there is an attachment from your ego that starts to grow as you being the caretaker of this being, right? And this is intentional. The universe puts this into us so we can have this connection and this bond to take care of this child. When it starts to become obsessive, and that's what we talked about last week about toxic attachments, is when things start to become obsessive. That's when we need to dial back and we need to step back and we need to start to see that things are not in balance. And this can also happen when we are in a very strong attachment to an identity, like being a mom. I need to be a certain type of a mom, right? Like, this is the mom I am and this is my identity. And we have these very strict structures around us, and it doesn't allow us room to grow or to be in balance or change or evolve. These things are actually keeping us from growing and ascending and moving further onto our path, right? You having your beliefs as a mother is your right. Whatever those beliefs are, nobody can tell you what they should be besides yourself. But when these things become so constricting that you are not able to step outside of them, when you know it's for your own good, you yourself are now a detriment to your own growth. And that is what is toxic attachment. That is what we talked about last week. And this week, I want you to understand why attachments are a detriment to our spiritual growth. And so attachments itself are not bad. Ego itself is not bad, right? This is what we learned in today's video. But what is bad, quote unquote, reality, nothing's bad, but I have to use this vocabulary, guys, so just stay with me. What is bad is when we start to take that information and we start to create these very strong structures that are very rigid, that do not allow us to grow and change, where we stay stuck. When you stay stuck and you stay comfortable in the stuckness, you're not growing. Your soul is expanding, and your soul and your higher self are trying to take you on this journey to expand to the highest realms of consciousness. That's always a goal. Always a goal for all of us. No matter who you are, where you are in your journey, that is always a goal, is for us to go through those ascensions based off of the lessons, for us to realize what the truth is. The truth is that everything that we're living in this world, in terms of the attachments, are all an illusion, right? So if you go into scriptures, you go into the Bible, you go into, the Bhagavad Gita, you go into the Torah, whatever scripture, any scripture, it always has verses in there talking about letting go of attachments, letting go of things that are materialistic, letting go of things that we think are possessions, like materialistic possessions, because those are keeping us bounded to this human life and not allowing us to experience the spiritual experience. The spiritual stuff that's going on, right? In order for you to experience the spiritual stuff, you need to know that there is a spiritual side. In order for you to know that there is a spiritual side, you need to believe there's more than this materialistic world. And when we start to have this detachment, and remember when I said detachment is just letting go. It's not like moving into the forest and not living this human experience. It's about having comfortability in not being controlled by the materialistic things in our life, right? By any positions. And when I say materialistic, this doesn't have to be like money or things. This can be also an identity. It can also be a belief that you strongly believe in, right? Like, for example, if I believe I have a very strong identity to I am Indian, and like everything that is Indian related and anything that is against Indian related, those things will impact me, right? So for example, if somebody said something like very very biased or very derogatory towards Indians, that would bother me. And when it starts to bother me at the level that I am able to emit hate, I'm not ascending. Do you see where I'm going with this? Like, this is what I mean about attachment. Attachment doesn't need to just be with possessions. And even in the scriptures, it's not just talking about possessions in terms of materialistic possessions. It's talking about possessions in terms of thoughts and beliefs too. So if you have thoughts and beliefs and attachments to these thoughts and beliefs that are keeping you from going further in your spiritual journey, then that is where the work needs to be done. That is where you need to start to dive deeper in your inner world to start to see what's keeping you there, what's keeping you stuck there. And if you're wondering, I am actually on the precipice of launching a one-on-one program for spiritual coaching. For those of you that are starting your spiritual journey and want to understand more about this, like, I'm starting my spiritual journey, I'm hearing a lot of stuff, but I don't really know what to do. And I'm also going to be starting a group coaching program for those of us that are on our spiritual journey and need guidance. And so these two things came to me last week when I was talking to a friend, and I've been thinking about, like, what is it that I really want to put out there? Of course, you all know that I work one-on-one and in groups with moms and with mostly postpartum mothers and mothers going through pregnancy. But I really was feeling called, especially after I've had this journey of remembrance of my own calling from previous lifetimes of being here to lead others and guide them to forge the connection between them and God, like being the bridge between you and your relationship with God. Like, as a shaman, modern day shaman, that's what I believe is my role in society. It's to help you understand that we all have our own individual relationship with Source, God, universe, whatever you call that power, and how to cultivate that and how to nourish that. And when you cultivate and nourish and nurture that relationship, the shifts that you start to see in your life. And so one of the ways that I really want to do this work is through one-on-one coaching with you or through group coaching. And so if you're interested in this sort of guidance, because I'm still putting everything together for the programs, go ahead and comment. And in the comment, just leave guidance. And that way I can reach out to you when things are being launched and invite you into this community. I do understand that as humans, it's very hard for us to find the exact formula. I'll say it this way, the exact formula to feel balanced and to feel the detachments at times, right? Like, we're so attached to certain things, and this is on purpose. This is the other part that I want to mention. Like, there's a lot of attachments that we have because these are lessons that our soul wants to learn. It wants you to learn that there's many things that are within you that you feel so attached and so close to, and when it's taken away from you, it causes so much pain, because you're supposed to learn the lesson of attachment and detachment, the lesson of letting go, the lesson of surrender, the lesson of there actually is no truth in materialistic things. It's actually just an illusion. Like, there's many truths that your soul needs to learn, and the universe will bring these lessons to you in a very creative way that only makes sense to you and only resonates with you. That's actually the whole point. And so if you're going on this journey and you're kind of wondering, like, yeah, I get the idea, but how am I supposed to, like, apply this practically? Like, this is the guidance that I want to give within these containers of, like, one-on-one and group coaching. One of the tips I'll leave you with today is this. It's when you start to get into a pattern of creating a lot of structure around things, right? And those structures start to feel very, like, confining That's when you know that a certain attachment is starting to get toxic, right? When things start to feel very constricting and not so expansive in life, that's when you know that there's attachments that you're not able to let go of. When the thought of something just not existing in your life brings up this whelp of like an anxiety and a sense of stress and a sense of worry and a sense of fear, that's when you know that those attachments are ruling over you, and for you to call. And so for today, the tip I want to leave you with is to maybe journal on those attachments that you feel so strongly about that may be constricting, may be creating an imbalance in your life, especially because we are embarking into the new moon, and this new moon in Libra, it's our first new moon after eclipse season. The dust has settled, okay? The dust has settled from eclipse season. Whatever happened in eclipse season, whatever was taken away, whatever drama came up, whatever shit happened, that dust has settled. You gain clarity from situations from the last month and a half, okay? Even if the drama was yourself, like even if it was like an internal drama, I'm not saying there needed to be an external drama, just so you know, like there could have been an internal dialogue of you calling yourself out on your own bullshit, on your own limiting beliefs, on your own shit of like self-sabotaging and things like that. Like whatever it was that you learned in the last month and a half, is now time to apply that with this new moon. So this new moon, and any new moon, is always about setting intentions. It's always about new beginnings, right? And within the Hindu calendar, one of the things that I celebrate is a new year. And so tonight into tomorrow will be our new year within Gujarat, is the state that I'm from. And so it's actually a time of like thinking about like, okay, like another year has ended. What is it that I really want to do? What are the intentions that I want to put with this new clarity, right? And so for your exercise for this week, I want you to do just that. Like as you're thinking about your intentions with this new clarity, start to think about the attachments you have. Maybe they're relationships. Maybe there's an attachment to to self and to a way that you think about yourself. Maybe there's an attachment to certain things. Maybe there is an attachment to something materialistic and that's causing you imbalance. Whatever it is, create a list of the attachments where you feel like you are not in control. Those things control you. Those attachments control you. And I want you to really look at them with like the eye of an observer. Like if you were your friend and you were looking at this list, right? What would your friend say to you about this list? And journal on that and start to think about your attachments, start to think about your habits, start to think about and bring awareness to those aspects of you that are holding you back because your ego may be too scared, maybe too comfortable, maybe too confined, or wants to keep you confined because it doesn't want to grow. Whatever it may be, my friends, I send you so much love with this exercise. And if you have questions, of course, you can always put in the comments or always DM me, send me a message, and I will respond back. If I get a really good reply or a question, I will always make a new video based off of that. And so I'm always here to guide you. Like I said, one of my purposes and my main purpose is to be here as a conduit between you and God, between you and Source, between you and the universe, for you to see that life is all about what you want it to be, okay? Life is not here to challenge you, to test you. God isn't here to challenge you, to test you. It's not about like this like heaviness that we tend to feel about life, about like, oh, like everything's so hard and everything's a struggle and I have to try so hard. I'm here to tell you that that's not the truth. That's just your ego and your beliefs. your attachments to those things that are making it a reality. Really, God is just a beam, a source, an energy of pure, unconditional love. When you connect to that through meditation, when you connect to that energy through meditation, through breath work, through any type of modality that is able to connect you to that consciousness, to God, the ultimate consciousness, all you will feel through your body and your being is pure love. Like love that you are not even familiar with, maybe. And if you felt it through meditation, then you know what I'm talking about. Like, there is no bias there. There's no judgment there. There's no level of attachment in terms of like attachment to the ego. It's just pure love, like pure love. That is all that you feel radiating through you and in you. And when you connect to that, that is the reminder that whatever we feel attached to in this human experience and in this body is all illusion. Because why do we actually run after those things? To find love? But we're always connected to the love. We're always connected to the ultimate source of love. We're always connected to the ultimate source of joy. We're always connected to the ultimate source of peace. We don't need anything to be connected to that. We just are as we exist. And so the work becomes the undoing of what we were told, and the undoing of the thought process and the consciousness that our ego is so deeply connected to on earth. The negativity that the ego gets is because the ego is what plants us in the fear, and the ego is what plants us in that programming. But we still are connected to the other source of programming, from source, from God, which is love. And so we have a choice every single moment, every single day. I'm going to leave you with that. I love you all so very much. Peace, love, and light. Namaste.